Hey guys, what's going on? Ryan here with Tom Not Fasana, and in today's video I want to talk a little bit about my fragrance journey. So I want to talk about how I came to fragrances, what my first fragrances were, and how I've kind of progressed over the years. Now, my reasoning for this video is I'm seeing a lot of posts, or I have been for a while, but there are a lot of posts from newcomers to the fragrance game, and they're just going out and they're blowing a lot of money on these really more expensive fragrances. Now, I'm not talking about like Versace stuff like that. I'm talking about Tom Ford and above. So I want to kind of make this video, kind of tell you how I started out, what I was doing, and what I am doing. So that way, if you're new and you're not sure what direction to go in, you can kind of imitate what I've been doing. Alright, let's start it. Now, I was 27 when I really started getting into fragrances. Up until that point, I was wearing cheaper compositions, primarily from Avon. If you haven't heard of them, they're like a cheaper kind of cosmetics and beauty line for women. There's kind of a mass marketing thing. But anyways, when I was 27, I had just moved out of the house, started graduate school and all that. So I was living on my own. It was all good. But one component I felt was missing was smelling good. So like up until that point, I kind of felt like I smelled like a boy pretty much, with the cheaper colognes and even the body sprays. And I felt I was on my own finally, so I was gonna smell like a man, so to speak. And so I started looking into it a little bit, and I didn't really decide to dive in until I came across this video about a Scentbird, and it was something like how many sprays are in the 8 ml bottle that they give you. And it were the two guys that were testing it out. I forget what the channel was or whatever, but I saw that and I was intrigued. I was interested, so I was like, all right, I'll look into it. Looked into Scentbird. I saw this other Scentbird ad, which I actually saved because it was so funny. It was by a popular YouTuber, Cuba Knows. You guys probably know who I'm talking about, but his personality was really out there, and it really kind of made me interested even further in exploring Scentbird. So I did finally, and I decided to get the monthly subscription. And I'm not going to explain how it works or anything. I mean, you guys, I'm sure you know the gist of it anyway. But I used that for 6 months, exploring different fragrances. The first one I tried was a Burberry Brit, which definitely was a step up from what I've been using. But ultimately, I decided I didn't like it. But that was my first decant that I received, and then I just tried various different ones. And I had the monthly subscription for probably half a year, and in that time period, I tried a good 20 fragrances at least. So after about 6 months of that, I decided to finally get a full-size bottle, and the bottle I went with was the 50 ml of this, but it was Dolce&Gabanna, the one. Now, I've talked about it on a few occasions on this page, but just in case, just to recap, I really liked this one. I liked how this one was subtle, it was smooth, it was kind of sweet, kind of spicy, and a lot of other people were saying that this was a great beginner's fragrance. So I went for the 50 ml of this, and I actually went to my local CVS. Now, it seems like a weird place to buy a fragrance, but when I was really starting out, I didn't know all these other places to go, or like, how now Macy's is my go-to retail place. I didn't know what retailers were good back then, really. So I just went to CVS because that was familiar, and, I had been buying a lot of my cheaper fragrances from them. So I found this one, but they only had the 50 ml. So if they did have the 100 ml, I probably would have went with it, but the 50 ml was fine. I didn't even go through that entire bottle before moving on to something else. But just so if you're starting off and you're not sure where to go, just know that you can go to a place like CVS or probably Walgreens or somewhere that you probably go to on almost a daily basis for milk and stuff anyways, just to buy a fragrance. After about a month and a half of wearing the one, I decided to go out and look at other fragrances, see what other options there were. And the rest from there is kind of history. I don't want to get too much into like what I did from fragrance to fragrance to fragrance because I don't think that's beneficial. But I've spent my time since then just exploring different scents, trying different compositions, wearing different fragrances, seeing how they react on me, which notes I really like, which brands I really like. A lot of it when you're starting off is really trial and error. But the thing is, you don't want to let your journey be dictated by other people. So like with me, my first bottle absolutely was dictated by it. I had no idea what to go out and get, so I relied on beginner fragrance videos, and this one was suggested. But past your first fragrance, I wouldn't rely on hype or recommendations from influencers, because I could tell you all day that something really, really works, or that I absolutely love something, and then you could get it and find out that it doesn't work at all for you. So that's the thing about fragrances. They are highly subjective. So just be cautious about that. When you're starting off, I understand the inclination, the feeling to just be like, oh, I need to spend like $1,000 and get a nice, well-rounded starter collection. But that's definitely not the case because, especially when you're new, I mean, you don't really know much. All you know is based really on what you hear. And as I said in the beginning, my reason for making this video is that a lot of people are just going out and right away spending like $1,000+ on fragrances, and I definitely would not recommend doing that. I would recommend starting with a bottle, probably 100 ml or 50 ml like me, something that for Dolce&Gabanna, the one, I think the 100 ml is like 95, or it's definitely under 100. So I wouldn't break the bank on your first fragrance. I wouldn't break the bank on your second fragrance. In fact, I would never break the bank on a fragrance. Their fragrances can get very, very expensive, and I believe that if you can smell just as good wearing something for like $120, why spend $500 on a fragrance just because the ingredients are more natural or whatever? That's just what I think. But I'm really, the more I make these videos and the more I really get into things, I really want to make sure I'm helping the beginners out there, because I don't want to kind of contribute to this mentality of just telling you guys to go out and just blow all your money on fragrances and buy new ones and buy the value sizes and stuff like that, because I don't believe that. And I mean, you can, of course, if you want. I'm not telling you what you can do. I'm just telling you what I think would be most practical, and especially for if you're a newcomer to the fragrance game. Well, what do you guys think? How did your fragrance journey begin? What was your first bottle? Did you start with a decant service like I did? Did you go right into bottles? Let me know how you started, and what your belief is on continuing your fragrance journey. Do you buy mainly based off hype, or do you follow your own sense of smell and buy what seems to be enjoyable to you? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, remember to give this one a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this content and would like to stay up to date with the page. Alright guys, but remember, when you look and smell your best, you feel your best, and that's what matters.